What's up? I thought I'd show you the Brock Blades Watson collaboration. Pretty standard Kydex sheath, obviously. Makes a really cool sound coming out of the sheath, I will say that. Very high pitched. As you can see, there is almost a cant to it, which I find interesting. I guess this is based off of a super old Kaiken blade or Tanto blade or something like that. Both edges are sharpened. It's actually single edge. And as you could see, there is a much deeper primary bevel than the secondary bevel, giving it, to me, a very perplexing look. Like, I look at it and I start going, what the fuck is that? Right? Because we're so used to seeing that spear point be as almost symmetrical as possible. And then you have that shorter or shallower secondary bevel that transitions to this slab right here, which also kind of makes the eyes go, what is going on? At least that's what it does for me. It makes me very confused. I'm like, what kind of knife is this? So pretty neutral handle, pretty small handle. You know my feelings on handles. I like it typically a little longer, but I see the benefit of a short handle. Short handles aren't going away. So it's like you either deal with it or you don't. I deal with it. Again, it's one of those knives that gives you just enough, very little, past just enough. If you can't see that. See that? One of those knives that you're, and Bantang, for example, does this a lot with his grips. His grips are just enough, and the knife kind of disappears into the fist, right? There's a reason for that, right? Security, first of all. Less real estate for them to argue over, and the closer it stays to your fist, the more secure it is. So I understand the goodness behind a short grip, and short grips are very easy to palm load, right? And so instead of having that grip almost be perpendicular with the path of travel of the blade, right, we're almost going to try and push it, right? So the heel of the knife is essentially going to be in the palm, and you're going to be wrapping around the blade thusly. So when you're pushing, you're actually pushing from the back of your palm, as well as the traditional way of gripping down and pushing with the knife. So this is a double-edged dagger. Not a dagger. Not a dagger. It is very thin. It is CPM 3V. It's about as thin as the Pentagon. It's thin, right? It has a traditional Japanese wrap with authentic rayskin. It has been resin coated, so it feels very tacky. It not sticky, but it feels tacky. It feels sharp. It feels like very similar to like a textured G10 or something, but it feels kind of fibrous, kind of like micarta. Seems pretty decent. Obviously, I personally think I like more filled out handles, right? I think palm swells are really nice. I think they're an inarguable part of a good knife, right? Some people go with thinner handles or more austere handles. And part of this is a concealment thing, right? A knife that is going to be this thin throughout is going to barely print, right? It's not going to weigh a lot, so it's not going to shift your center line or anything like that. And yeah, it's going to be kind of ideal for that, right? For how long it is, this knife would be super concealable because it has a thin neutral handle, thin blade all throughout, very lightweight, and just what you need in the handle, and you're talking about maximized killing power and the length of the blade. And Yeah, I'm guessing the blade is slightly canted for those sort of hooking around techniques that you'll kind of see happen in a potential clinch or a grapple, where your arm's actually extended beyond the target and you're kind of hammer fisting backwards, right? And if that blade is canted a little bit, which is one of the benefits of a Persian, right, is in a super close engagement, you're going to be able to hook around guards and go up and underneath, right? Or up and over, because that blade kind of turns back and helps you with that, right? So I kind of see that being as a potential benefit. Yeah. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about that cant? What do you think about that? You could see it's a little biased, right? It's got a little bit of a bias to it, right? So what do you think that might be beneficial for, maybe not beneficial for? Right? See that? Yeah, you could see it. It's swept almost, right? So what do you think? How do you think that might help you? See that? How, like, as my risk is, like, I'm locked out here, and that's kind of the cant we're seeing, right? It has some pretty nice looking jimping up here. Almost feels more like just tactile touch. You're here at the edge of the ramp. Kind of what it feels like to me. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to stop you or arrest you. It's not really abrasive in any way, but it's got a nice tactile feel to it. It feels unmistakable. Feels razor sharp. Finish is nice. Good grain. No blade choil. Super lightweight. Has that little swing, like little sing to it, which I think is honestly super sexy, right? So why did I buy it, even though it directly contradicts some of the things that I say are very important in a knife, right? First of all, our steels are very good. And there's an undeniable reason why we've seen so many people go towards thinner knives, and I think cost is one of them. But if we're going to see this unavoidable change where people are making thinner knives, I think we need to, regardless of whether we prefer them, understand why they exist and what kind of roles they can fill successfully without exposing you to undue risk due to critical failure or something like that. So part of it was I need to verify this, because on one hand, I have anecdotal, personal evidence that thick knives are better, that a thin knife will fail. And then on the other hand, I have personal, anecdotal evidence that thin knives do the job, right? The Pentagon was about this then. So is it a question of how they're used? Is it a question of quality or materials? Or is it a question of differing expectations on what they should even be doing, right? So part of me wanted to look at a knife like this a little bit more closely without obviously destroying the Pentagon, and see what I think about this in a broader perspective about thin knives. Where do they belong, and what are they suited for, right? This feels like a super fast and agile blade, right? But is it enough? Modern CPM 3V is very tough, you know? We may be allowed to change our perspective on the limitations of our steel, because undeniably our steel has changed and it's light years better than it used to be. So I want to look into that because I want to be able to understand that better. I've never had a traditional wrapped rayskin knife before. I've never had a handle like this. So I said, fuck it. I wanted to get something like this and explore whether or not the handle was still viable, right? I think whether or not you think it's like weeb shit is fine, but I think to ignore you know, hundreds, thousands of years of martial blade use and just say, oh, it's weeb shit. It's not good. I feel like there's lessons to be learned around the world, right? It's why the Romans adopted the Spanish spatha. It's why we adopted the tomahawk. We take shit that's better. So anyway, I wanted to, have some personal experience with this. I see that some makers swear by it. Some people do a ton of knives in this style. So I don't know if it's really just for the aesthetics or if it's just because, I like Asian stuff. Or if there's any actual real benefit to a setup like this, or if it's just personal preference. So I never owned a knife like this before. I wanted to give it a shot. And then I wanted a thin dagger. It's still single edge. So I could kind of explore that and see how viable such a thin blade would be. So that's kind of a reason behind that. I think this is, it's funny because, I feel like this is so grabby. Like, I really can't transition this thing super well. I mean, the handle is very short. It's, if you just get a little bit used to it, I guess you could still do it. It's just different because it's a very short handle. Handle's very lightweight, which also kind of changes the velocity and how it lands in your hand. It's viable if you do it. The rayskin is actually super grabby. It's almost like a low grit sandpaper. It feels like it snags at every little contact with my skin, which makes that a little weird. It actually is kind of grabby in a different way. If I'm being honest, this is really its own experience. There's, G10 feels different from micarta. Micarta feels different from G10. 3D printed scales feel different than carbon fiber. And this really does feel different. I'm not going to lie. It is its own thing. It's not bad. I think I still prefer more three-dimensional geometry with my handles. I think palm swells and just more over-designed handles are really nice. I think this one's adequate, right? I feel like it does its job. It's simple. It does its job. It's super lightweight, super thin, and I feel like that's what he was going for here. I think I just personally prefer a little more thought out handle, even if I do have to sacrifice some agility with how light and concealable the blade is. We'll see if my opinion changes, but I don't. I think my first impression is it's nice. I don't necessarily see a problem with people honoring past practices, but unless you're really wanting to be experimental and want to experience a different way of knife handle, it's not something you need. It's not critical to understanding knives, but it's something different, and it's viable. I would say it's viable, yeah, but I don't really see myself going out of my way to replace my collection with rayskin handles. I don't see that happening, and I don't think I would pay, if there was a micarta version and a rayskin version, I don't think I would pay the increase for the rayskin arbitrarily. I would just get micarta. But it's definitely viable. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.